Hello and welcome back to the Calculator Review, hosted on calicoin.com. So for the past few weeks I have been reviewing these Jot calculators. These are found at the Dollar Tree. They are $1 each. This is the third one that I'll have reviewed. They have not been great, and this is probably the least promising one. Now, if you've been following my reviews for any length of time, you'll probably recognize this one because it looks a lot like something else I reviewed recently. Well, not that recently, but a bit ago. And that is the Big Display 8 digits electronic calculator with the American flag. I was not a fan of this calculator. It's incredibly cheap. If you see these side by side, they're practically identical. The difference is this one is a different color scheme, doesn't have any kind of logo over here, no American flag, and no pretend solar cell. Other than that, the layout is identical, so it's likely that these came from the same place, but we'll find out. So I have not opened this, but I do know it works because I can turn it on by pressing this button. So let's get it out of the package. And first hands-on experience. Alright, let me set that aside. Okay. So, yeah, this is actually, it feels worse. It feels less solid than this. And I think that's only because this has this fake solar cell as a sort of support for the side. Yeah, this feels incredibly flimsy. So I'm going to take a look at the back and see how identical these are. Scenery Electronics Limited. This has a date of 2009, but this one I know was constructed in 2018. So this one is much newer, and they have not done anything to improve on this whatsoever. So, alright, that's enough of the Big Display. I'm going to focus on the Jot calculator. So you have this big button, a screen. Oh, okay. Alright, it does get some bonus points because this tilting display actually does stay in place. That's actually kind of nice. Okay, so they at least improved that. So, right off the bat, the buttons feel very, very cheap. Just shaking around, you can hear them kind of rattling in there. Wow. Just... It definitely looks better than the Big Display. I like that they just went with a very flat black color scheme. It definitely looks better than those obnoxious colors. I like the black and white look. I think that's actually kind of neat. I've said that before about other calculators, that I would like a black and white color scheme, so, well, here we are. Unfortunately, it's a crappy calculator, and I don't even really need to take this apart to be able to tell that the internal components are also just as cheap as the external components. And, yeah, like I said, I didn't have high hopes for this at all. And I can't imagine anyone else would. And I know what you're thinking, you know, it's a $1 calculator. What do you expect? But honestly, I have found calculators for $1 that aren't that bad. In fact, even by Jot, they had a scientific calculator that was okay. It wasn't something I'd recommend, but it wasn't completely useless either. So, since I don't have a whole lot to say about this, might as well take it apart and take a look inside. If I can get all this stuff. Actually, so, like the Big Display, this only runs on a battery. This is not, at least not pretending to use a solar cell, but you gotta remove all of these screws in order to get to the battery if you need to change it. and I genuinely don't understand why anyone would design something like this. I always have a set of electronic screwdrivers on hand for when I'm working on these calculators, but someone who is busy and needs a calculator is going to be disappointed when this thing runs out of battery, because they probably won't have those screwdrivers right next to them, or the batteries for that matter. And that's why solar calculators tend to be a lot more popular. Alright, let's see if I can... Oh, no, still got to remove those two screws over there. Yeah, so as I'm taking this apart, I can feel... I mean, you can see how much this is flexing. This is incredibly cheap, flimsy plastic. Every expense was spared, just like the other Jot calculators. I mean, even the packaging is pretty lackluster. Okay, so, yep, exactly what I expected. So, your internal components are simply this very, very, very weak plastic, pretty pathetic motherboard, or chip. I don't even know what to call that, but I'm not going to try to take any of this apart any further than it is, because it's so cheap that I'm worried I'm going to mess it up. It's held in by these plastic rivets, and if I try to pull up on this, it's just going to rip this very flimsy... I mean, this is less thick than a sheet of paper, and it feels like with very little effort I could just grab two ends and easily rip it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to destroy this calculator. I just want to critique it. I can't even say I'm disappointed, because this is about what I expected. Okay, that was my bad. So yeah, well, actually this gives me a chance to get a better look at these buttons. Now, oddly enough, these actually are pretty structurally sound. They're very, very strong. I don't think it's so much to do with the plastic as it is to do with the structure. This grid structure is pretty effective. So one that uses less of that is actually just as strong. I'm actually kind of impressed. They didn't do a very good job of cutting this. It seems like it was probably done with a fairly inexpensive machine, relatively. It's not great. It's just, you know, if I can say one positive thing about this calculator, I have to say the buttons don't feel like they're gonna snap when I squeeze them. Not exactly high praise, but hey, it's something. So, on the negative side of this, though, is, again, going back to the busy person using a calculator who needs to change the battery. A small mistake like just lifting it up and looking at it is going to cause all the buttons to fall out, and that's not convenient. So while this is incredibly annoying for me, you know, this could be devastating to someone. I mean, how are you going to perform operations like this? So I'm not gonna. Well, yeah, I'm not going to reassemble this on camera, because who cares. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and have a great week.